Welcome back, Wildcat fans, to another edition of the Deer Park Coaches Show. I'm Jake Snyder, Coach Tucker Berger. Coach, today we're going to recap the game against Indian Hill, and more importantly, look ahead towards our matchup with Finneytown this Friday. So let's get right into it.
Yes, sir.
All right, so 42-7 loss to Indian Hill. We knew coming into this game that's a good football team you're facing. I thought you guys played a pretty clean game.
Yeah.
You're in it all the way, really, up through the start of the third quarter. Mm-hmm. Just give me a quick takeaway, a couple of takeaways from this one. Obviously not the result you want, but I think there were a lot of things to be proud of.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing is, you go out there and you want to win every game. But I think there were a few things for me that I was just really glad to see. One, we cut down on a lot of mistakes. Limiting the turnovers, especially after the week before we had a bunch, and same thing with the penalties. But it just felt like our guys battled for 4 quarters. Yep. And, I mean, the morale never dropped, and if it did, we had guys that picked it up. So it just kind of showed that they learned from that Taylor week, and they kind of carried over that mentality of, hey, we're never out of it. We just got to keep playing to this Indian Hill week. Yeah,
a couple things you mentioned there. The discipline, I thought, was significantly better this week. 3 penalties for 30 yards. Mm-hmm. That's really where you want to be. Things are going to happen. Holds are going to happen. But if it's just holding penalties, you're not making – it's not the personal fouls. It's not the false starts, those mental mistakes. You got to really like that aspect of the game for you.
Yeah, and I mean – you can talk to anybody football-wise, and I think they'll tell you there's holding on every play. Right. So sometimes that's inevitable. But just seeing how focused they were and kind of how, they listened and they limited those 15-yard penalties that we were getting, the prior weeks, I think that just shows a little bit of growth on their end too.
For sure. One other thing, no turnovers. That's obviously been something that's plagued us in the losses so far. Mm-hmm. And what that no turnovers did, especially in the first half of this game, is it kept it clean. You're down 21-0 because the defense is just struggling. I mean, Indian Hill's got a really good, powerful offense. But then Morgan's pick 6 at the end of the first half really kind of brings you right back into the game heading into halftime.
Yeah, and I mean, that was kind of the thing. On the sideline, we were all, I think we were hanging around and we kind of had that feeling we were just still kind of hanging around. And that play just, we all kind of looked at each other like,
wait a second.
14 points at halftime. Like, we got this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was just a big play, and I think it really just put a little bit more energy in us going into halftime, and I know the guys got a little bit fired up off of it. And I think it just kind of carried in the second half.
For sure. Defensively, obviously, it was a tough one. You did have a couple of guys, I thought, Isaiah Alford and Riley McHugh. You don't want your safeties and defensive backs having a lot of tackles, but they both finished the game with 10 tackles. Just looking forward to next week from the defensive side of the ball, what do you need to do a little bit better to get off the field, get the ball back in the hands of your offense?
I think the biggest thing we have to do is just really lock in on those fundamentals. I think at times on some of their bigger plays, we were out of position just because some of our guys got thrown off by a little bit of eye candy they were giving us.
Yeah.
Instead of just sticking in there, reading their keys and, doing what they're taught. So I think just kind of dialing back and recovering those fundamentals and recovering those keys that they need to focus on will help us a lot just in making those plays. So, we're not letting 60-yard plays go. We can stop them at 2 and 3 yards.
For sure. All right, I got a couple of plays to look at because, again, offensively the numbers aren't going to jump off the page for you. But I still thought there were some good moments in this game, some things you guys did pretty well really early in this game with the ball. The first play we're going to look at, this play, all these plays aren't necessarily the big 40, 50, 60-yard plays that we're used to seeing from our athletes, but I picked all of these out because I thought they kind of really express who we are as an offense and when things are going well, what it's going to look like. So this first one's going to be just a 13-yard run from Morgan Brown, but this is how the triple option is supposed to be run. I think everything was good about this play, so just walk me through it.
So we've had an idea of what Indian Hill was going to do to us. We know that end was going to crash a lot, and he was going to be really heavy on crashing just because when we play these disciplined teams, we know that there's 3 levels to each of it. Tank does a good job of pulling it, and he knows he's going to have a guy in his face, so he does a good job of pitching out quick. And then, Morgan just does what Morgan does. I feel like every week this is a segment just kind of talking about how he's getting better and better.
Yeah.
I do know we have a listener out there, I believe, somewhere in Indiana, Linda Williams, Morgan's grandma. So just appreciate you guys supporting us. But he does, just a really good job of catching it, getting vertical, and finding a hole. But just with him, I think it's just he's getting better each and every week. And I think you can see he gets stronger each and every week. So even though he is so young and he's a freshman, I think just each game he's getting more and more experience, and he's just adapting more and more to the game.
One thing I really did like about this play is, like you said, when we play these really good teams, the discipline's going to be a little bit better. It's going to be a little harder to get through. You're going to have to make guys miss tackles. Mm-hmm. If you can make the first guy miss, this is what's going to happen. You're going to get these big gains. And so that's kind of why I picked this play out. I really like the safety crashes hard to make the play. He's right there to make it. Morgan steps underneath and breaks tackle. Yeah. That's when you're going to gain 10, 12, 13, and then break the big ones eventually. So we're going to switch to the defensive side of the ball here. This play isn't like super exceptional when you watch it on film from a like eye-popping perspective. I just really like this play. It's 4th and 10 on the defensive side of the ball. You really need a stop. It's 21-0. You're really looking to just kind of stop the bleeding a little bit. Yep. And, this play, the reason it's so good is in its simplicity. The coverage is good. You get a little bit of pressure. They have to rush a throw, and you get to stop. Sellers on the coverage here. Talk me through this one.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the biggest things is, I think this was right before halftime. I think there's maybe 2 or 3 minutes left. And, that's pretty good field position for us. Mm-hmm. So, we hadn't really had much of a stop the whole game. So this was just something that, made us feel like we still had that chance. Tink knows it's 4th and 10, so he's going to play off a little bit. We have that guy underneath sitting on that hitch, and he knows when he sees number 2 go that he's with him. So he does a good job of running with him. And I actually give him a little bit of credit that he doesn't go up and try to really make the interception, just knock it down.
Yeah, you don't need it.
That's a difference in about 20 yards right there. Mm-hmm. So, and that's one thing they work on every day in individual is doing those man turns and turning and playing the ball. So, that's just technique right there, and he does a good job of, not letting the guy make the catch and, setting us up with pretty good field position to start the next drive.
Yeah, for sure. Coverage all the way across really all the levels of the receivers there is really good. Quarterback's kind of staring down that receiver. Good coverage by Tink.
Yeah. Good
play defensively. That's what you're looking for. That's what you need in games like this. At some point, you just got to get stops, and so you definitely like that one. All right, we're going to jump ahead here to this is also in the second quarter here. This is right after that stop, actually, and this is when Morgan's going to take this one for 17. Again, this is just a great version of the triple right here, but kind of a spectacular play by Morgan as you watch this play, just to get outside on this and really just make something happen.
Yeah, and
that jump stop
that's a heck of a move. You see it's the same thing in the back half. He gets the crash and he pulls it, and he's got a guy right in his face. It's a quick pitch, maybe unconventional how he gets it out there, kind of just flicks it out there. But one thing we really stressed going into the week was we knew we were going to have to pitch the ball and get to the edge if we were going to have success.
Yeah.
Just with how fast they were going to fly down and how they were going to take away the back and the quarterback, we knew that getting outside was going to be our best friend. Right there, all of our big plays really hit outside on the pitches. And Morgan does a good job of catching it. He makes a guy miss, and then, he gets outside and turns it up. He makes 2 guys miss. And
then a third up there in the second level, too.
Yeah, and that's just a big thing for us. Half's ending. We're trying to get something going. We're trying to get the ball in the end zone. Plays like that just keep the drive alive and just really help out and just keep the ball pushing. Same
drive here. You get backed up with a penalty a little bit, but this is the dangerous part of this offense when it's rolling. You talked about everybody getting outside, but when you have success that way, all of a sudden you get a play like this where Alford's going to take it right up the middle for 10 yards.
Yeah, and
it's a well-blocked play.
Really, that's what we've been waiting to see from him. We've had some struggles in practice with kind of that mesh. Mm-hmm. It hitting a little too wide or it hitting a little too slow. So, we've worked on that a whole lot, and I really like seeing that out of him. That just shows you, those backs don't always get the credit they deserve, but I think between him and Jaden, they both do really good things, and I think they both complement each other really well. I mean, people just you don't know how quick Isaiah is until you're in the game, and he squirts that hole, and then one move, and you're like, oh shoot, where'd he go? I mean, we see it in practice. His cuts are crazy, and I mean, he runs harder than he might look. He runs just being in a small frame, but I think he's just going to be one of those guys that is going to trend up as the year ends, just because he seems like he's figuring it out now, kind of as we're going through the end of the season.
When if you can figure that out, again, it just opens up so much more of the offense. You remember those years past when we've had that big guy in the back.
Yeah.
Having that, it's just a whole nother weapon that you have that, again, just opens everything up for everybody else too.
Yeah.
And so just even getting this on film and seeing it be successful is something that's got to boost your confidence moving forward.
That's something, as an offensive staff, we're aware of. I think we know a lot of our big plays are ones that are hitting outside the edge and we're getting out. So, I mean, people might be sleeping on our running backs a little bit, and I think those are two guys who will put that on their chest and just kind of push forward and make the plays they need to.
For sure. All right. So this is obviously the biggest play of the game here. Right before half, clock's running down. I was a little surprised they threw the ball here, to be honest with you, with this little amount of time. But again, you haven't really stopped them all day. In their heads, they're thinking, hey, we can really put this thing away. This is a good read here by Morgan. Complete the play. Just talk me through this one.
Yeah, and we're playing off because there's not a whole lot of time left.
Yeah.
So Morgan does a good job of seeing, and really what they're taught to do right now is just, if anything's underneath you, let him complete it, rally up, make the tackle.
Yep.
Guy overthrows him. Morgan's in the right window. He picks it off, and then he just turns it into a play. I mean, pick six is honestly, that's the best thing you can ask for.
Yeah. I mean, at this point in the game, for sure, with this little amount of time on the clock, there's no guarantees he picks that thing off and gets tackled that you're going to score.
Yeah.
This was something you needed. And like you said, I mean, from a momentum perspective, notwithstanding the result of this game, but as you're heading into halftime against a team that's, going to finish first or second in the league, let's just call it what it is. They're going to be at the top of this league at the end of it all. There's no doubt about it. To go in at halftime with the momentum, feeling good. I mean, that's wins and losses are always going to be there. That's how you're going to be judged at the end of the day. But, I think totality, it's important to look at who we are as a team, and this is just a big moment and a big play for you
and
guys.
I think that's just one of our captains making a play at a big moment, and I think you could see the morale and kind of the mental of our guys switch after that happened. We went into halftime and the guys were up. They were like, okay, hey, we got a chance, we're still in it, guys, keep playing. And I think that carried over into our first drive out of the half. I mean, yeah, they scored, but I mean, they worked for it. It wasn't like they were just busting 70 and 80-yard runs on us. I mean, they had to put drives together and go down the field.
The entire day, really. Yeah. Like, that was – and even into the second half, which I thought was a big deal, is, you're not – it's that give-up factor, right? You didn't see that at all in this game.
And, I mean, 42 points doesn't look great.
Yeah.
I get that. But I think from someone who was at the game or who's watched the film, it didn't feel like we were just getting out there just getting – waxed every single play.
I agree.
I mean, we made him work for it.
I agree. All right, last play we're going to look at. I told you before we started that we were going to talk about Morgan a lot in this game, but I just like watching this kid run. Man, this is the second half. It's the third quarter. Again, this game's still not out of hand, and I thought this play was just really well run. Tink does a nice job getting the ball out to him, and watching Morgan run is just fun to do.
And I mean, the biggest thing is it was fourth down.
Yeah.
And, we're down. I think it's at this point, it's probably 28-7.
28-7, yeah.
And we really just needed a play to keep the drive alive. I mean, we hadn't done a whole lot on offense. So just kind of extending drives as much as we could just to kind of get those defensive guys a rest was big. So we run a little speed option, just trying to get to the edge. And Tink does a good job of just flipping it out there. That receiver down at the bottom of the screen, I think that's Riley.
It is Riley.
Riley does a good job of just taking the guy where he wants to go. Morgan hits the alley and, picks up some yards. He breaks another tackle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just when we run the plays the right way and we execute the way we're supposed to execute, I mean, we pick up yards.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that the kids are starting to buy into is, if I just do my job or if I just do what I'm supposed to do, everything else will fall into place. I think at the beginning of the year, we really had the issue of a lot of our guys just worrying about other people and other people getting stuff done. But I think now it's kind of like, oh, well, if I do what I'm supposed to do, then, I mean, I can't change what the guy next to me is doing or what the receiver on the whole other side of the field is doing. So it's just really taking care of their job, getting it done, and then, everything kind of falls into place like this, a 22-yard gain on 4th down.
For sure. All right. That's all the film we're going to look at today. We hit the halfway point. Again, I told you the season creeps up on you quick. It feels like yesterday we were out summer camp, and now here we are halfway through the year. You're 2-3. At this point in the season, I think that's probably, you'd like to be 3-2, maybe. There's some things out there that we have seen and talked about, but at the end of the day, you're 2-3. Everything is still in front of you. Playoff berths are still there. Wins are still out there. Just give me overall thoughts on, I think, where this team's headed. The 2-3 is what it is. What are you looking at for the second half of the season? What you expect from your team?
Really, it's just continuing to grow. I mean, I think we have some winnable games still left on our schedule. And I think if we just keep progressing how we have from week to week, I think we're going to be a really tough out once we get to the end of the year. I mean, as we keep progressing and as we keep playing, just kind of buying into what the coaches are saying and, trusting that process and trusting each other is just going to be something that really drags us along. And I mean, just, I think this is a week where we got to go out, execute, play well, good things will happen. And then we just got to carry that over to the next week and the next week until our luck runs out.
Speaking of Finneytown this week on the road, Finneytown's 1-4 on the season. It's a game you walk into, knowing where you're at, and knowing what's on the schedule, knowing this is a game you want to win. But the reality of the situation is Finneytown came into our place last year on homecoming and beat us. This is the CHL. There is no game on your schedule that the team's just going to walk in and hand you a victory. What do you see from Finneytown? How do you go out and get the W this week?
And I think it's a similar message to every week. It's really, if we play our game, then there's nothing else outside of that we can control. Finneytown's got some size. They have a really good offense and defensive lineman. Watching the film, you flip it on, he's the first guy that stands out. I mean, he's beating blockers and it doesn't even matter who they're playing. But he's in the backfield on defense. He's trapping. He's blowing guys up on pulls. So we know that that's one guy we got to highlight. And I mean, he's been a guy that's been around since he was a freshman. I think he's a senior now, and he's a heck of a player. Really outside of that, they got some athletes. They'll do some things offensively that are different from what we've seen these past few weeks. So we just got to adjust and prepare differently for that. But I know their coach over there. I know Coach Tatum. He's going to have them coached up, ready to go. And I believe it's their homecoming. So, I mean, the vibes are going to be high over there. So,
little revenge game on the mind then.
Hey man, we've been talking about it. We got to get it back.
Yep, for sure. Just to close this out, Friday night, you get them on the bus, you head out there to Finneytown. Out of the locker room, what's going to be the last thing you say to them before they walk on the field?
Man, really, it's just remember how you felt last year. I think that's something that's really stuck with me is because, it's just a game I felt like we let get away from us. And I know a lot of the kids felt like it was a game that if we could have it back, we'd really have it back.
Yep.
And with that, it's just knowing that we still have goals that we need to accomplish, and this is just another game that we need to get. They're a higher division. It's good playoff points, and it's just something that's going to keep this train moving all the way to the playoffs.
Coach, appreciate you as always. That's going to do it for this week's episode of the Deer Park Coaches Show. Be sure to join us on Friday on the road at Finneytown.
Yes, sir.
Make sure, if you can't make it out, that you follow Deer Park Athletics on X and on Facebook for game coverage. And listen to Tuck and I every Thursday night on Spotify, Apple, and iHeartRadio. That's going to do it for us. He's Tucker Berger. I'm Jake Snyder. We will see you all on Friday night.